Welcome back to another episode of SMACtalk Live, Social, Mobile, Analytics, and Cloud. I'm your co-host, Brian Fanzo, known as iSocial Fans, coming to you from Phoenix, Arizona today, and it is almost in the 90s, almost 100. And I know my partner is coming to you via Google Hangout, which we are recording this of, from Chicago if you could see him, I can see him on Bright Video, in a very bright green soccer outfit that we actually got when we were in Barcelona. How are you doing today, Daniel?
I'm great. One of these days we'll just have to do at least some outtakes of our video because people don't have the pleasure of seeing how much fun sometimes we have actually recording these shows.
Yeah, how many hand signs we do. And everyone that watches me do anything, they know I talk with my hands. And so even on the podcast, I'm talking with my hands.
I thought that was funny. Yesterday, somebody actually said that in Social Business Hour. They're like, Brian, I learned so much from watching the way you talk with your hands. It's like, I don't know why I'm learning from this.
I know. And it's funny because of all the things I got in trouble with when I had to go to speaker training after college when I was doing it for the Department of Defense and speaking at the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And one of the things they kept saying was like, Brian, stop moving with your hands. And I was like, well, as long as it's not a hand microphone, what the heck's the problem with me talking with my hands? But that's always the joys of doing that. But I'm excited. I know you and I have been doing a ton of events. We've been speaking at events. We went to Barcelona events. We did couple podcasts from South by Southwest. I know you were speaking at another event last week when we were talking a little bit about healthcare. We've talked about data. And with all this event conversation, I think we just have to talk about the new way of events. And I think it's partially this idea that, I've been talking a lot, and I always say that you can attend every single event every single week. And it's thanks to the hashtag that's associated to events. And so with SMACtalk, Social, Mobile, Analytics, and Cloud, really what events are doing, the new event, the event in 2015 that is really gets the power of technology is integrating each one of these aspects into their events, connecting online and offline worlds. Because I don't think it's one or the other anymore. And it's about how do you connect this offline community so that you have a relationship beyond the other 364 days, not just that one day of the event or 1 week of the event.
Yeah, I think we have discovered now after doing these evergreen events that there's actually ways to create content in events that isn't just for the event. I think that's the biggest thing is event planners, like whether it's Mobile World or South by Southwest, where you're talking about 50, 100, 200,000 people all converging on one city, or even like a smaller event, even as big as Social Media Marketing World was last week that has a few thousand people, is you're spending a ton of money as a planner or as an attendee to be at these events. How do you make these last longer? And I think with some of the live video things that are going on with social media, there is so much power and potential, but I think a lot of events just, even big brand events do not capitalize on this. And I think from having attended so many and being social influencers, amplifiers, content creators at them, we're really starting to see the light of what's possible. And I'm hoping over the next, 20, 30 minutes, we can talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think that's that kind of goes to it, and I give want to thank our sponsor IBM and the new way to work. IBM is reinventing the way we think of email with IBM Verse. So go ahead and check out ibm.com/verse, and you can find out more information and sign up for IBM's new email platform. And really, I love the new way to work slogan because it also comes with this new way of engagement. And I think we can't start off this offline online conversation. We can't start it without actually first talking about business cards. And I want to bring this up because I actually brought this up on the stage when Ted Rubin and I were presenting at Social Media Marketing World. And I let him know. I said, hey, we both kind of see differently on the future of business cards. And I always laugh because every event today has an app. And I would say, I don't know about your opinion, Daniel, but a majority of them suck. Like when it comes to these apps, some of them don't even push to social. Some of them are caught up in their own kludgy UI. Some of them try to pack too much information into an app. And really, to me, the app should replace the business card because I should be able to not only pass credentials, but connect with someone digitally through the app to where the business card isn't needed. But I mean, as someone that says that, I still bring business cards to every event. I ran out of business cards on the last day at Social Media Marketing World, and I brought a lot. I probably brought 110, 120 business cards, and that's how many I gave out at Social Media Marketing World. And this is a social media event. So, what are your thoughts there on really what the future of the business card is and how the business card relates to this whole digital event conversation?
I think there's something still very legit and professional about handing someone a business card. In certain cultures, it means a lot. Like if you go over to Japan, I mean, it's like the way you present your card and everything is super important, and it shows a lot of respect for another business culture. But in the social space that we live in today, card, and I still offer a card. I always have them. But what's the first thing I do when I meet someone I'm genuinely interested in getting to know better or connecting with? Are you on Twitter? That's just me, because that's probably the social platform I spend the most time on. So I'll ask them if they're on Twitter. And I know that seems kind of funny, but it's a way to get to know somebody kind of in a lurking sense. I can add them to a list. I can watch them and just get to know them a little bit. What do they share? What do they talk about? What's interesting to them? And then I probably say, are you on LinkedIn? And that's the professional opportunity. Let me learn a little bit more about your background and your the social data. Let me learn about you. And let's connect there if we think there's a legit chance that we're going to, work together in some capacity. And then, like I said, down the line, the other social channels start to creep in, right? If you realize, hey, we got a lot in common, we're friends, we might connect up on Facebook, we might connect up on Instagram. But I definitely think the business card will end up in a shoebox, right? I mean, I don't go back to the business card. If I need to find you, I'm going to hit you up with a message on LinkedIn, or I'm going to tweet you. Or, like I said, I mean, if you really hit it off, yeah. Brian's showing me right now a pile of cards he got at the event just this last week. And he's muted, but they're going to.
Yeah, well, that's truly the audience right there, right? I was muted. But I mean, like talking about South by Southwest and social media marketing world, I have a handful of business cards, a stack full of them right here that were on my desk that I've been meaning to take pictures with Evernote and go online. But yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to break your train of thought there. But I think you're onto something too. I think that's it's really this true idea of there is a sense that you almost have to have one because you feel unprofessional if you don't. But I mean, here's my thought on that is, if I give you my email address or I give you my business card, it's really hard to stand out in your pocket or in your desk or in the trash bin. But if you follow me on Twitter, I'm gonna have a chance to tell my story. Like, isn't that? I mean, ultimately, for me to stand out, my resume is not better than everyone else's. My business card sure as hell isn't better than everyone else's. But if you follow me on Twitter, I feel like now you're in my playground, you're in my community, and I think that's kind of a different way of thinking. I've even got to the point where a couple of times I'm like, well, here's my email address, but if you truly want to get a hold of me, text me at this phone number or tweet me. There's a different priority there, and I think maybe that's the millennial mindset that we're talking a lot about. But that's really how I think of it when we're talking business cards.
We almost see the evolution of a professional relationship via social, and you go kind of like, for me, we all have a plan that's like Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Where am I going to follow you as we're building a trust in a relationship? At some point, maybe a text message or an email. And I won't undervalue the importance of tying in owned media, like having a killer website. I always say, like, that should be on your business card, and that should be in your profiles, your social profiles, because like you said, we were talking before about people have asked you about speaking gigs, and then they'll end up asking you to speak about something that you really don't speak about. And it just goes to show that these people didn't even spend, because if they spent 2 minutes on you and went into a LinkedIn profile or a Twitter profile, they would know that you're sort of what you're passionate about and what you speak about. Or they would go to a website about you to learn what your topics are. And so what I'm saying is there's really no more excuse to be lazy. And I know this isn't the exact point of our entire conversation, but as we start to go into creating evergreen content from events and maximizing the value of events, you have to think about how we're using social data to help improve the engagement that we have every day and building those relationships at events. And people need to stop being so lazy and leverage all the platforms available to them.
Right, and when we're talking about this, and so I mean, even kind of segueing it beyond the business cards aspect of it is really, I mean, we want them to connect with us socially, and I preach a lot about the importance of your digital footprint being your first impression. But let's say it's not your first impression. Maybe your first impression is offline, and that's going to happen a lot of times as well. What is your second impression that actually creates a conversation? Because I think it's one thing for me to get a whole stack of business cards, and yes, I try actually. I've actually been to a couple of networking events where they actually they teach you how to turn your business cards into value. So you write a little note on the back, or for me, a lot of times I take a picture of their of the business card or their badge, and then I put a note in Evernote like about that person, and that's actually been of some value to me. But at the end of the day, there's also this element where how do I push this upwards? How do I and I'll give a shout out to our friends Inigo app. I don't know, Daniel, if you've checked them out yet, but our friend Eric Mitchell does a little bit of work with them, and they sponsor some things going on. And I actually use their app at Social Media Marketing World, and I'm going to include the link that I used for their business card app in the show notes here. But what it is it allows you to actually click and choose what aspects of social, what website, what email address, what contact information, and make individual custom digital cards for each event that you attend, and then you can push that out using the event hashtag. And I actually think it's a very early on, and I think we all remember Card Munch and some of these other apps that allowed you to really take the offline business card and turn it into an online asset. But I'm all about event apps, and I used Bizbo app this week at Social Media Marketing World, and actually the app is actually really nice. I'm a big fan of the work Bizbo does, and my little brother actually works for PSAV in the mobile app development section. So they create, I'm a big fan of creating these apps. But ultimately, if the app dies at the end of the event, what value does that have for me? Because you know what? I've already deleted that app from last week's event off of my iPhone. So all of those notes I had in there, hopefully I've moved them onto another platform. Hopefully I've copied and pasted them. But maybe it's something more about this. I mean, are digital events taking mobile into account for mobile being more than just an event resource? Are they leveraging mobile? Because like this Inigo app, like if you were able to integrate this into the event app and people were able to pass their digital business card around, then you're actually using this app for all of the events, and it gives the event a chance to actually leverage that data. Because I don't know if many events are taking mobile app event apps and leveraging that data. And that sounds like a mouthful.
Yeah, I'm processing. But I think it's kind of interesting, Brian, is that for a long time, they've actually been trying to do these apps, like you said, Card Munch and some of these. I remember like in the Sky Mall magazines, they had the little scanners that you could scan the cards in, and they go right into your contact database. But again, that's really not the problem. The problem is even the phones and the bump technology. Remember like the bump and share contact? Like I think now that actually probably has a heck of a lot more relevance with so many profiles and places that people could connect to you. Like what we do need to do, or what needs to happen, is technology does need to catch up, and something that's more centralized needs to catch up, where how do we quickly connect and maintain that relationship? And then, our friend whether it's at Pipeline or our friends at Nimble, John Ferrara would say, and then getting it into a CRM system, right? Getting it into a system that then manages like, how did we meet and why did we meet? I mean, I have friends on LinkedIn, on Facebook, certainly on Twitter, that I met at an event, connected with, talked to, and really if they came up in my stream now, I wouldn't remember having met them. I wouldn't remember what we talked about. And that comes down to a CRM play, but that actually is also a big reason why social CRM, social, and events are going to tie together. Is we meet all these people, and whether it was a business card, a physical card that we took, or a digital connection that we made with them at that event, how the heck do we maintain what we talked about with that person and then create some longevity into the future, and then and use technology to streamline that, where it doesn't mean us sitting at our desk for 2 days after an event entering every relationship into some system manually.
Well, it's funny. I had Jason Miller of LinkedIn on Social Business Hour yesterday, and Jason Miller, I asked him, I said, how do you check your ego at the door and collaborate with all of these other brands? LinkedIn collaborates with HubSpot. LinkedIn collaborates, and they create all this content. And he went into the story and said, actually, we met at an offline event, realized we had similarities, connected online, started those conversations, then set it up as a business partnership. And to me, like the first thing that went off in my head was, wow, that's truly the element of taking offline, online, turning it into business value and transforming that relationship. And that's impressive to me. And I think it's something we talk about a lot, but how many people are actually doing that? I'm really good at documenting in a CRM system or in my own way where people prefer to be engaged that I know online. So like I know if I'm messaging Ted Rubin, a friend and mentor of mine, I go to Facebook and Facebook message him, because he will not, he'll reply to tweets, but he won't immediately see a direct reply on Twitter. But on Facebook he'll immediately reply back. But then if it's someone else that I know that is primarily on Twitter, I'm going to ping them on Twitter. And so I document those pieces, but I don't say that I do a great job of documenting, hey, I met this person at South by Southwest. They also came and watched me speak at Social Media Marketing World. That's 2 touch points. I should probably do something proactively and engage them. I think that's where these digital events that allow this the not only the participant but the speaker and the host and even the sponsors, because like Hootsuite sponsored Social Media Marketing World. How much data could they actually get from the apps in their user base if those people's true social footprints and data was connected into the app, and the app or the event organizer could actually push that information to their sponsor?
Yeah, well, how do we create more value and create more relationships and contacts and ongoing relationships through these contacts we're making in events? How many people do we talk to? People that retweet us, share us, favorite us, follow us at an event? How do we, use content, engage people, create comments, and then create an evergreen platform that means that relationship carries on? You and I have this talk all the time as business partners about how we're courting new relationships with brands, sponsors, friends, that we're like, oh, I had this great conversation with PayPal today, and maybe we should partner with them. And then like 3 weeks later, it's like, whatever happened with PayPal? And it's like, crap, I forgot. I totally had a great conversation with them. Now I need to get back to them again. Because, we store so much information in our head, but we generally, even as much as we're technophiles, we have a really hard time going from an event back to our desk and getting all that information in there in a way that's meaningful, that keeps the conversation going and keeps all that energy going, Brian. And I think that's one of the things that's so important to come is there's this unbelievable energy, and that's the reason conferences still exist. That's a reason they haven't taken them all online yet or taken them all into some sort of on-demand streaming, is because when people get together in a room, and I heard someone I respect, and Ginny Dietrich, she's the founder of SpinSucks, and she said she went to Social Media Marketing World, instead of doing group dinners and all these group evenings in the bar, she said she scheduled her time and did one-on-one meetings, like 20 one-on-one meetings while she was there, and said it was the most productive event she'd been to in a long time. But I like what she kind of said, though, is that the energy we create and feed off of at a live event, it's very hard to do digitally. It's not impossible, but it's very hard to do digitally. And what we need to do, though, then, like you always say, is turn handshakes into hugs and turn eyeballs into relationships, right? And that's what's still, I think, kind of missing. I think there's a technology connection angle that's still missing of how do we really take an event offline or online and then carry it on offline. And then also, how do we manage all of it? How do we manage all that information? This is big data. And, we love talking about data, but honestly, Brian, after the 4-6 week whirlwind you were on, how many of the relationships that you started have you really been able to carry out and execute something meaningful versus how many just cool conversations did you have?
No, I mean, that's a great point. I mean, a lot of those I had offline if they were at multiple events or they reached out to me online. And it's funny because I have Twitter up here while we're talking here on this event, because that's kind of how we do multitasking. And, Erica Berry, the original EB, was her Twitter handle. And she said, hey, heard you speak at Social Media Marketing World, iSocial fans. I love your speaking style. Very easy to listen to. Where are you off to next? And the funny part is, ideally, I would have known about her and had her information in my feed beforehand, but that's the first time, I'm connecting with her. And I think, as a speaker, I think we need to, empower that. And we talk about the reason employee advocacy is successful, and this is kind of a weird segue, but, follow me on this one, is part of this is that if you make it easy for your employees to amplify great content and tell their story, they'll do it. And I think that comes to an event as well. We have to make the digital experience offline easy, and that includes connecting the data, I run analytics. Everyone that, if you go to an event that I'm at, I add that event hashtag to a list, and then I usually make that list private after the event is over, and people probably just think that it's all vanity and I want people to follow me, but little do they know what I end up doing is I take that data and I put it into an app or into a Spider Cube, a tool that I use, and in Spider Cube I actually compare that to my followers and figure out who of these people who are at an event, who are using a hashtag, that are actively engaging, who are them do I not follow? Because to me, that means they're not getting our message. They haven't been to millennialceo.com. They haven't read my content. And I need to think about, okay, what strategy do I need to deploy so that they can actually do this at a better rate, right? And I think that's rethinking this digital offline online experience. And I also think that also kind of comes into effect when we're talking about, let's talk about, this is an interesting conversation, is Meerkat and Periscope, right? I have Periscope up and running as we're speaking right now for our podcast. And one of the biggest things for me was the founder of Social Media Marketing World, Mike Stelzer, reached out to me Monday of last week and said, Brian, I know you're all over Meerkat. I know you're all over live streaming. How do I preserve my Wi-Fi network from crashing if everybody's doing this live streaming? And also, I'm having people sign up and pay for a live streaming online pass to watch an event. And I really, like, to me, I mean, I thought it was kudos to him, because not only did he reach out, but he was proactively thinking about it, because Meerkat's only been out for a couple of weeks. Periscope actually got launched at 2 a.m. the first day of his event. But, there's also something to be said about, with people live streaming elements, the events can pretty much take two aspects. They can embrace it, try to make it a little bit better with Wi-Fi. Like at Social Media Marketing World, I went out of my way to tell everybody I knew that was meerkatting or Periscope to do it on your cellular network. Do it on your own data plan. Don't crush the Wi-Fi that 2,000 people are using just to do a live stream for audience. And I think most people respected that. But it helps as a social media event. Or are these events going to treat it like a Wi-Fi on your airplane? And they're going to make it to where live streaming you're not allowed to use the port that it needs to do live streaming when you're on the Wi-Fi at an event. And I think that might actually cause a lot of uproar. But this is also, what events today aren't live streaming, and why? Because, I mean, we all can't fly to every event, but I think the best recruiting measurement to get someone to a future event, in my opinion, is give them the ability to have that live stream, or give them just your keynotes on live stream, so that they will. Because, I mean, I don't care what you say. Live streaming is great. Following a hashtag is great. But offline at the event is really, you can't replace that no matter what you do online.
I think there's the ability to feel connected to an event that digital can create. I think streaming stuff can make you feel connected. I think that putting social and hashtags and following hashtags, like for me, like I haven't been able to attend a few of these events. I've been back manning the shop or the cave or whatever you want to call it while you've been out, traveling the world. We're going to switch one of these days for a little while. But I felt like at South by Southwest with Meerkat, I was able to be there a little bit. I was on the street corner with you. I was in some of the workshops with you and a few other people. Social Media Marketing World, there was only a couple of speeches I really wanted to see. Like I really wanted to see Jay Baer. I really wanted to see you and Ted speak. So those two I was able to see, and I was able to actually gain a newfound appreciation for that event, because candidly, you and I, we all have different opinions. I wasn't as excited necessarily about that event because I felt like I'd read a lot of the content from a lot of those people already. So it let me see just how much energy and how much value maybe attending that really has. So it actually could help convert me. It could actually help convert a lot of people who maybe don't see the need to go to an event, and they go, look at that audience, look at that crowd, look at what's being talked about. Maybe next time I have to actually turn this digital venture into a real life trip to go to this event. I don't think people who go to that event either are going to be like, oh, you're streaming that, I'm not going to go next year. Only if the experience wasn't good. Only if the experience wasn't good, they might go, okay, next year I'll only check out the ones I really care about. But if the event rocks, I just think it's a window in that's going to end up drawing more people to pay their way, to get to these events, to support them, and just build momentum.
And I'll use a good example here. So Content Marketing World, our friend Joe Paluzzi and those guys over at Content Marketing Institute, they had Kevin Spacey do their closing keynote. And I had just saw, very luckily, Kevin Spacey 2 weeks before that at an IBM event do the closing keynote, and he rocked it. He killed it. And I was a little disappointed that I wasn't at that I didn't go to Content Marketing World. But at the same time, what I thought about was like, I'm going to jump into the live stream. I'm going to get a couple of, I'm going to watch the Kevin Spacey thing online. And it was funny because not only did Kevin Spacey quote things that had happened online, but Joe Paluzzi talked about like all the things they did great throughout the week and kind of like recapped it before Kevin Spacey's presentation. And all I remember is before Kevin Spacey even came on for the live stream that I was tuning into, I went on my calendar and blocked off 2015 when Content Marketing World was going to be, even though it's in Cleveland, and I'm born in Pittsburgh, and we used to say there's nothing good that's ever happened ever in Cleveland. I might actually make an exception to that with Content Marketing World, but it's because he gave me that view into it and allowed me to watch that live stream. I can almost promise you it would not have been on my radar this year if he had not done that live streaming aspect. So I know we've talked business cards, we've talked about kind of the app integration, and we've talked a little bit about this live streaming, Meerkat, Periscope one. I think that the next piece, and I'm curious what you think about this, I can't stand both of us being millennials, and Ted Rubin actually brought this up on stage when we were talking. He said, everybody talks about the millennials they love digital, they love technology. And I love flexibility. I love working from home. We're both sitting in our home offices today. But without question, that does not mean that we do not love face-to-face, in real life interaction. And I think, unfortunately, this millennial stereotype that millennials only want to connect online, they only want to text message, I think is crap. I prefer to be, Google Hangout or video or FaceTime over a video call, over a regular phone call, because I like, communicating and have digital eyeballs and talking with my hands like I am right now. But so what are your thoughts there when, maybe some of these event organizers, the reason that they're maybe not thinking of it the same way I am, or maybe not connecting the importance of offline is, hey, maybe millennials don't need to because they like working from their home and only being on digital. I mean, I think it's a mistake. What are your thoughts?
I would say the online, offline debate of saying millennials don't like, it was debunked. We talked about that in the actual millennial, remember our episode? We did the episode about millennial myths. It was absolutely debunked. Just because we're young does not mean, and we're not that young anymore, but just because we're younger doesn't mean we don't want to see people in real life. It doesn't mean we don't want to shake real hands. Ongoing day-to-day engagements that just don't require us to physically be in front of each other. I think sometimes it's finding an excuse to meet. But I think overall that's why, like I said, when we go to these events, there's a certain sense of energy you just cannot get online. You just cannot feel the presence of somebody online. And that's always been your thing, Brian, talking about, like I said, handshakes into hugs and eyeballs into handshakes. And the point is, digital is a great place to continue relationships, manage relationships, start relationships, build upon them. But those moments when you remember the original tweet ups, I never hear that word used anymore, but when you would go to a tweet up and you would meet all the people that you've been tweeting with, say you're, at an event, we're all at CES, and then someone does a CES tweet up. So there's 100 people that you've only ever talked to on Twitter. That first time you actually shook hands with somebody, how excited they were to finally meet you. Like they've been maybe talking to you for 2 years. But that excitement that gets created is because of real life. So I'm 100% aligned with Ted on this. Like, I think there is a ton of value to still getting in front of people. I think the offline to online and online to offline thing is momentum building. It's just like any relationship. You have to continue to nurture it. And before social and digital, you had to do it differently. You had to spend more time maybe having lunches or having phone calls or exchanging emails, writing letters, sending faxes or TTYs or whatever it was you did to stay in touch with people. Digital is now how we do that, and digital is how we sustain momentum from events. Like that hashtag carries on forever. I mean, social media marketing world, South by Southwest, those hashtags don't die. They get quieter, they slow down, but people talk about that stuff year round.
I think that's a great element there. We're really talking about the ones that do it really well, and I'll give some love to Social Fresh. Our friend, Jason Keith, he had 2 events last year. I know he has an event coming up this year, and their company is built around this event and their podcasts, the Social Tools podcast, which is definitely a great podcast as well to listen to. They really do is that event is also, the event is like kind of the offline megaphone, but that hashtag is used. Their website has great content on it year round. And I really truly do think there's an element here where people have to start thinking about the hashtag usage and also the community they're building and turning them into tweet ups, like you said. I mean, why not have a tweet up in different cities, even at someone else's event or at a different event or maybe a big thing going on in that city, and have a tweet up that brings 40 or 50 people online that those people are doing that live tweeting of that hashtag again to almost keep that conversation going. Because, community takes 365 days of building. And, like you've said, for me, I will never you'll never hear the words social replaces a handshake or social replaces a hug, or what I'm doing online should never transition offline, because I don't want to build more followers. I want more relationships and friends that live online and offline. But when it comes to this element of how do I connect with these same people, because social and really the digital space is so damn noisy. And I want to find people who share a similar passion to me. And part of the reason, like to your point about Jeannie Dietrich, I actually saw her having her one-on-one meetings in social media marketing world. So I can attest to her having those over there when I waved and said hello to her. But, like some of my favorite moments of that event were, finally getting to get a hug from Ann Handley and having a nice long conversation with Ann Handley. I got to sit down with Marcus Sheridan and Chris Brogan for an hour and 10 minutes just talking about speaking and events and life. And those things, I follow them online. We're Facebook friends, right? But those are the things that you have to empower. But how do I continue those conversations? How do I take that hour of true value and take that online? And I think events that make that happen are the ones that people are going to spend $2,000 to. Because here's the difference. I think you hit this earlier, and I want to rehash it real quick. The events that provide true value, that focus on the user and the attendee, are the events that people are going to pay to go to. The events that are full of crap and really are just about sponsors and putting on just random people up there and spewing their crap, the reason they don't want to live stream them is they know that they're not going to get repeat viewers, right? And I loved it because at Social Fresh, at Social Media Marketing World, they gave you an alumni sticker, right? Our alumni flag on the bottom of your badge that said you were an alumni. Do you know how many people were in an alumni event? I mean, I saw way more alumni than I saw non-alumni event stickers there at that event. And that's because the event is quality. It's good. But I bet you a lot of these other events, the reason that they're scared of this transition, they're scared of this change, is mainly because their event isn't providing the ultimate value that is getting these repeat customers. And if they gave people a peek into that from online streaming or trying to connect digitally, they're going to quickly realize, wow, this event isn't worth my time. And that scares the crap out of them. And it should, because I think the times are changing.
Yeah, I think you absolutely hit it on the head. I think value is the key to events going forward. And value, though, the offline-online connection is one of the values that good events are creating that other events are not. They're creating sustained communities around the events. They're creating sustained value around the events. They're finding ways to make people feel hooked into the event and the community. And I hate to say it, Brian, but it goes back to something you're very passionate about, that we're very passionate about, that events are centralized by having strong evangelists in their communities. The community of the South by Southwest is huge. You know, you'll get Burning Man, huge. You look at CES, it's huge. Now, again, you go into these smaller events like the one you're at, Social Media Marketing World, or you look at some of the smaller events that we've gone to. You mentioned Social Fresh. They also have very, very tight communities. And what I'm saying is a brand should be looking at using digital to build and sustain that community beyond the timing of those events. And that's the biggest thing that I see, tying the paid, owned, and earned, tying having strong web presences, ongoing blogs, ongoing podcasts, videos. If you think about these events that are good, they almost all have ongoing content that sustains relationships with their most influential people that go on all year, right? So,
yeah, I mean, if I'm going to spend money, like if I put myself in the user's shoes, and I think this is for everybody listening to our podcast. I think something we all struggle with is we all want to go to events, but also it's about picking and choosing and prioritizing our time. Daniel, you and I know this, more so than anyone, is there's events that we're asked to speak at. There's also events that we love to attend because we love the people, and there's this balance on how you weigh those and how you prioritize. This is hard-earned money. You're spending $2,000 plus you're spending your personal time. And some people, I worked at a company that I actually took leave from my job. I took my time off to go to a couple of events that I thought were going to be better for my own personal growth, because I think investing in your own personal branding is something that's up to you. You can't blame your company for not doing it. It's something that you have to own yourself. And ultimately, at that same aspect is, how do you even know which events are great to go to? I know there's you can read some blogs about it. But I think part of it comes down to, if I'm going to have a good experience, and this goes to my philosophy at Social Media Marketing World, I didn't look at one title of one of the presentations. I looked at the people presenting it and who was attending those events, and I wanted to go there for the people. And I don't care, let's talk about Simon Sinek and Seth Godin. They presented, they were the opening two keynotes of Icon 14 last year, Infusionsoft's event that I went to. They were amazing on stage. I was so glad I got to sit front row for their presentations, watch them present. Very cool events. But you know what? When everyone asked me about that event, the fact that I got to see them up close was probably the 10th or 11th thing I highlighted, which is kind of crazy to think about it, right? Because how much money is that event paying to get those people there? But I talked about these offline workshops that we had, or the dinner that I had with 5 or 6 people. I got to sit down to the CEO of Infusionsoft and him tell me about his ultimate vision for being the catalyst for great small businesses. And to me, those were the true value there. So how do we connect people? I think maybe let's summarize the last couple of minutes of this episode on, it's not about connecting offline and online events. It's about connecting people that we meet offline, online, and taking these online events and taking them offline. I think that is where this conversation gets corrected, because it's about those people. Although we're talking about technology, it's about the people.
Well, right. Technology is always powered by people, right? The future of business is not powered by technology. It's powered by people. Technology is an enabler. This is like the theme of our show, the theme of the whole new way to work, and why we align with the sponsors we do to choose everything, is it's really about the people we end up working with. So that's kind of goes back to that whole community aspect, right? How do you engage people to continue conversations? Like, how do you know all the people that are going, creating groups and having places where people are talking about not just the events, but, like I said, what influences you to go to an event? When you see a stream going through on your Twitter, on your Facebook, where 50 people that you've always wanted to meet or that you have met are all saying, hey, we're all converging on San Diego next week. I can't wait to see you there. You're like, I want to be there. I don't want to miss out seeing all these people that you haven't looked at the speaking list yet. You don't even know what the topics are. You're like, these are 50 people that I miss. I want to go see them. And they're all going to be in one place. And I think that's sort of the way community continues to converge, because I'm like you. I probably don't necessarily look at who the speakers are first in most cases. I know the Kevin Spaceys of the world are great. I've seen Malcolm Gladwell speak. I've seen a lot of great people speak, but you've kind of hit on the head. I can also go on demand onto YouTube and see all these same speeches that these people have given. So people come to these events and they say, that speakers are often defined not by what they say, but how they make people feel. And I think there's a little bit of similarity there in terms of events. They are not always defined by the actual quality of the content that's presented to them, but it's how all those one-on-one and personal relationships and engagements made them feel. If you went there and met a lot of people, started a lot of relationships that are going to last into your future, you're going to go home and say it was a great event, even if maybe in the back of your mind you're saying some of those presentations weren't all that great.
Well, it's funny. That's so true. I mean, and even in the sense of, and I'll give, David Meerman Scott jumped on Periscope the other day. I think it was yesterday, or the day before. And I mean, David Meerman Scott, I've seen him present. We've been lucky enough to have him on our social business hour. Great presenter. Really really has his whole thing down. He's a great author. And he was talking about one of his favorite things to do at events is selfies with all the people that can't wait to meet him, that want to sign his book and such. And this is, and to me that was like, wait, I think aren't the baby boomers saying that only millennials care about selfies and we're this self-centered generation? When this is someone who's a prolific speaker that gets paid to speak around the world, and yet his favorite part is the selfies he gets with his people. And I think that's maybe the lesson we learn here is like, it is about those people and it's connecting, and it's for everyone. It's not for just because it's a millennial, and it's not just because, someone is on stage versus off stage versus someone that's an event organizer. I mean, there were some people that were volunteering at Social Media Marketing World that I would have paid to watch speak, and they were volunteering to host a session or host a breakout table just so they could be at that event. And I think that's the difference between an event that actually truly is centered around the people and one that's just more, that is more fluff oriented. So I would love to hear, as always with the Smack Talk, use the hashtag SMACtalk, SMACtalk. Let us know some of your favorite events that while you're listening to this. Hopefully if you're driving, you wait till you actually get there. I do not promote texting while driving or tweeting while driving. So if you could, let us know some of your favorite events, maybe some events that are doing it right, that are connecting digital correctly, that have a great mobile app. I know I'm going to ping my little brother after we get off here and tell, get him to use the hashtag and say, hey, what are your favorite events that use apps correctly? Because his company, his business is about creating apps for some of these events. And and really truly I would love to hear a little bit more about this, and maybe this is a topic we revisit again, Daniel, at a future event, or maybe I think we have Shanghai and Australia on the calendar before the end of the year for some events we're attending. Maybe this will be one of our future international topics when we're speaking at one of these international events. But I love this conversation, and I think we're still in the early days of offline events connecting with the digital audience, but I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, we definitely want to be two of the biggest advocates for it. And if you see the way we work events, we'd love your feedback, but I think we really do get into trying to make that connection on an ongoing basis. And yes, China, Barcelona, Australia, for our worldwide listeners, pitch in. We want to hear about events around the world, because one of the things that we want to do is take this message and take this social story that we're building here in the States global more often, and of course, see the world in the process. So yeah, definitely check us out though, millennialceo.com/SmackTalk. And thank you to IBM Social Business and New Way to Work and their IBM Verse New Way to Work email solution, which if you haven't checked out, it is pretty cool. I know it's a plug, but we actually only plug the stuff we like. So for another episode of Smack Talk Live, I'm Dan Newman.
I'm Brian Fanzo. We are out. Use the hashtag SmackTalk. Until next time. Cheers.